Okay. Co-host invites. Let's see if this works. We
There
did
we
it.
go.
Yeah. So like that's what I was saying is I actually have to go live on my platform as well, and then we co-host, and we're both the same size.
We out here.
Yeah. Let's do
Come on,
it.
technology.
I feel like so honored to be speaking with you. I'm like, oh my gosh, look at me. I'm in my
Are you kidding me? You stay out here killing it out in these streets.
You know, I like to yell at people. I love it. I love this work. I really
you
do.
said you said you like to yell at people. Is that what you said?
Yeah, apparently that's what I do. Like people ask me what I do. I'm like, I yell at people on TikTok.
I'm not mad at it. I'm not. That's funny because I feel like I'm telling people all the time that there's so many lanes to do this work that are all so important. And so I feel like as you know, like that's I'm not a yeller on
Yeah,
TikTok, but I
no,
love to partner with the yellers because we
and we
gotta
love to partner with you, right? Like,
absolutely we gotta get it going. You see
indeed, indeed. There's many,
the
many ways to skin a cat. You know what I mean? So I think that it's actually really, I think it's good. I love all of the, hey, all of the different ways that I'm seeing this work roll out with different people,
absolutely
right? Like,
absolutely
huge fan of like Portia, White Woman
oh of
Whisperer,
course of
Parenting
course
Decolonized. And I'm like, each of us are doing this like in our own way. And it's like so amazing to me, all of the healing that's happening. It's like,
absolutely it's like the like of course the teaching and educating and then like all that community that community like
yes,
I'm seeing people in the chat right now like I see you parenting decolonized I see you Ryan I see you I def overthink Ryan uh
yay.
yeah peeps is up in here parenting decolonized said Desiree stays pushing back wigs.
I wish I would too, like, because I'm from the hood, so I can't be, I get stressed out. I can't do that. Like, I'm not going to talk to you, but so nice. Like,
That's what's up. That's what's up. Yeah, and you got
but
that
yeah,
that the New York swagger.
yeah. Oh my God, I love being here. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I love it. I really do enjoy it. I enjoy the work. So,
I'm just imagining, like, not that your fit isn't saying this at all, but I'm just imagining you got Tim's on for no reason.
no,
Just
I actually have some fuzzy slippers on. They're so cute. I'm channeling my inner Fran Drescher. You see my leopard.
oh, okay.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
That's
So yeah,
amazing.
I'm actually let me stand up and show y'all my little.
We're gonna
Yeah,
start off with the
they are
with the with
fuzzy
the.
slippers. Like, see, like it's a whole outfit.
Oh shoot! Okay, you got the
Fuzzy
whole fit
slippers.
going on. That's the work. That's work from home life right there.
Yeah, this is my lounge outfit, right? Like all of this.
Yeah,
So yeah, I love
I'm
it.
with
I love
it.
it.
Yeah, it's a joy to be able to connect. Like I said, I rarely go live, but it's just really cool to have this community to be able to connect with dope people like yourself, people who I have so much respect for the work that you do, and I see you just all the time, just having these interactions and just like the ways that you will respond to stuff. It's like, oh my gosh, I would not have thought to have said that in that particular kind of way, and it's given like New York teacher slash like mom energy. Like some
I
people kind
love
of need the mom energy where it's like, oh, okay, let me tell you about yourself because we got to do better. This ain't rolling. This ain't working right.
it. Yeah, let's do it
Um,
again. Let's do it again.
yeah, and it's like I'm a big fan of direct communication anyway. So I'm in the Pacific Northwest. I'm in Washington State. I don't know if you've ever been to Washington State. We do not do direct communication over here. It just
Um,
doesn't.
so let me tell you, right? Like I've traveled a lot of places and I've even lived outside of this country. And I have not found another place that's as direct as New York City. And I
Hmm.
think because there's no time in New
Yeah.
York, right? Like I got things to do. I'm moving. Look, hey man, are you doing
Yep.
it? And I really love your description because it is very mom energy. I
Yeah.
actually talk here the way I talk to my children. like
Uh huh. Uh huh.
I talk to my 3 year old the same way. Like I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you making that choice? Like,
Exactly.
does this seem
Exactly.
like a
Exactly.
good choice to you? Like, you think you want to do that again? So it really does. I'm glad that kind of comes off because I really do want to be loving. And sometimes like that harder kind of like, yeah, I got my Tim's on attitude distract some people. And then I'm like, oh well, because like I said, I'm not really trying to convince anybody. If you resonate with me, stick around. We'll ride this ride.
Yes.
It's okay to get it wrong. As long as you keep showing up, I'm gonna keep showing up. Um,
Yeah.
if you're too fragile to deal with it, please find somebody else to do that with, because I have zero energy for fragility at all.
Yes, I'm here for it. I'm here
Yeah,
for it because we got too much work to do. There's too much to do. I talk about like the freeway. Like there's all kinds of different lanes to do this work, and that's where I'm at too. Like if I have to convince you that racism is a thing,
yeah,
like
yeah.
nah.
No,
If you need to be convinced
yeah,
that this is a thing in
yeah,
the year Beyonce 2022, like
yeah. It's not
I'm
happening.
just not the right one. I'm just not the right one. There are other people who will have those conversations with you, but not
Right.
me.
It's definitely, and if I have it, it's definitely not going to be pleasant, because you got to be kidding me. In
Right.
2020, this is a question. You know what I'm saying? So, like,
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm not doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So hold on. How did you get into this? Like how did you get into the type of like stuff that you do and then you somehow made your way onto TikTok? Like tell me about you.
Okay, so so how I fell into this work. Honestly, fell into it. Had zero intention. I got a cleaning company for like 20 years, right? It was
No kidding.
always, yeah,
You
because
said a
it's,
cleaning company?
yes, it was
Mm-hmm.
so simple. It was great money and it worked with my life, right? Like
Yeah.
I really liked the idea. Even when I was married my first time, I really liked the idea of being able to be home cooking, doing all of those little like domestic things, and showing up for my daughter for her stuff, but still making my
Mm-hmm.
own money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was able to do that in the evenings. And then even after my divorce, I started one here in Atlanta. And again, it just worked. I could drop my kid off,
Mm-hmm.
pick her up from school, and it just kind of all works out. So fast forward to that, because of that, I was very active in my neighborhood, right? Because I'm
Mm-hmm.
in homes, this, that, and the third. And my neighborhood Facebook group was her fucking horrendous.
Okay.
Okay. So it's all
Like
hate.
what kind? Yeah, tell me more.
Yeah, but these motherfuckers are a cop. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, like they're like
Is it like
reporting.
there's a suspicious looking person out
I'm like,
there
they're
and
black. They're just black. Like, what the fuck
they've
makes them
got
suspicious?
they got a darker skin,
You know what?
curly hair.
I would actually appreciate that description more, because they're just like black people walking, and I'm like, I'm black. He's black too. Do we look the same? Can I
Right.
get a better description going on here? Because
Yeah.
like you're really putting a target on our back. So
Absolutely.
like having those conversations, and of course, you get those people who just like want to pretend the neighborhood is absolutely. I would never, the Black Lives Matter. They got the fucking rainbow flag, and
Right.
unicorns and shit. And I'm like, listen, you wear black people and gay people like fucking costumes. And if you're black and gay, you're not safe here. Like my
Yeah.
husband grew up in this neighborhood and he
Hmm.
doesn't even walk it anymore
Oh wow.
because of you guys kind of talking, right? So, basically they got an attitude with me and like, if you want to have these conversations, I was like, you know what? I do want to have these conversations. So I started a Facebook group of
Okay.
my own, and that was like 2017, like
Oh okay.
2017. And
Yeah.
I was like, it might have been actually. I'm like, well, anyway, I think it was 2017 where I formed the actual Facebook group and
Hmm.
having these conversations. And then I would be like, I was doing like neighborhood meetups, and then just like having people unpack this. Why is this a problem? And they felt like safe to come, like, hey, I saw this post. It didn't feel comfortable, or how could I word this differently, because this is what I want to say. And I'm like, some of those things are valid. You just
Hmm.
can't say them the way you're saying them. So that kind of just grew from this. And then I came on TikTok, um, like everybody else, like their kids like dancing around. And then, Rona came and
Right.
hey, and it was like, I'm bored in the house, bored. And
Right.
I was just doing silly TikTok dances and everything with my kid, just like everybody else.
You was doing the TikTok dances?
I was doing the TikTok dances.
I'm gonna have to scroll back on the
You
archives.
gotta scroll all the way back. I'm just not talking about a shit. So I was totally doing like the TikTok dances. I am super not cool and coordinated like that, but I was doing them. And then I started talking about Biden and Trump,
Uh-huh.
and with that stupid, vote blue no matter who bullshit.
Right, right.
And like, so I think the one that made it was like, was like one of those songs, like, I'm from the hood though, like the hood though, like really, really, really from the hood. And I was like, that's why I won't vote for Biden.
Mm.
And here we are.
Yeah. No, oh God. Yeah. The conversations about like voting are always
Yeah.
very, very interesting. They're very, very interesting, right? Like, because like there's never enough nuance in terms of like the value and importance of voting, but then the fact that a lot of people, their full commitment to racial equity and anti-racism is they vote, every other year, and then that's it. Like, oh, everything is all solved now because we got
Oh,
our
but
we
I
got our
knew
person
it.
in there. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Like you said, no nuance, right? Like that vote blue no matter who. I was like, so if Trump flips his ticket, you're gonna vote for Trump?
yeah.
It's like
Right.
you guys, you can't be fucking serious. Like the lack of critical thinking, and it goes right to those pillars of white supremacy, right? Like it's either
Exactly.
or. Like it's Trump or
Yes.
Biden. I'm like, or we tip this shit and like nope, or don't go vote. A protest vote is also a vote. Go vote
Sure.
for yourself. Break the system. Go vote third party. And like there's a lot of different options here besides these two people. And
Yeah.
like voting for somebody who has like 47 years of racist policies.
Yeah. It's very depressing. It's very depressing.
Yes.
'Cause, obviously the two party thing in and of itself is like
Yeah.
wild, right? That's just a wild construct. And like the way that I describe it is I feel like, you see the right side, like it's almost like cartoonishly like a twirling my mustache villain. Like it's just cartoonishly evil policy and
Right.
rhetoric,
Right.
right?
Right.
But then so much effort that goes into like getting what they want, right? Like they gonna do what they got to do, even though it's all terrible type stuff and manipulative, blah blah blah. And then I feel like then you've got the Democrats that kind of propose all of these different sort of ideas and have this label of this progressive blah 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 blah, but are completely impotent and
Listen,
will not do anything
they
to
are
actually make change.
diet, like literally diet Republicans. I thought, like, when I
Oh,
really
that's a great phrase. Say that again. Say that
diet
again.
Republicans, it's like Republican light to me. I'm like, it's the same shit, right? Same
Yeah.
same bird, and I'm just like completely over the system. Period. At all. I don't. Like, if people kid on me, like, yeah. Abstinence voting is a vote. It's a
Mm,
protest vote. Like I don't, and they're like, your ancestors died. I was like, fam, my ancestors were killed because they were
right.
trying to exercise their rights. They
Yeah.
didn't die for it. Nobody. They were not martyrs. That's a white man
Mm,
concept. They did not seek to be like, I'm going to go and vote and die. They just wanted to go
right.
vote.
They just
Like
wanted to go vote. They just
they were
wanted to go
black
vote.
and they
Yeah. Yeah.
wanted to
Yeah.
vote and they were black, so they were
Yeah.
killed.
Yeah.
I need us to really start reframing some things because the white suffragettes weren't hung, lynched, shot, and murdered for trying to get their rights. So
Come
like,
on.
it's
Come
just
on
that they
now.
were black and living. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah.
yeah, that's it.
And I feel like that whole thing of like I see this too often where like progressive minded white people will use black voices to chastise black people.
Don't
It's like
don't
if
get
y'all could if y'all could stop that, like if y'all could stop that, that would be a beautiful thing.
oh my every fucking year. They pull out every single quote from MLK except the ones like, I fear I've integrated my people into a burning house.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
The call is coming from inside the house, right? Like, don't
Exactly.
surprise me. When they murdered him, he was considered a domestic terrorist.
Yeah.
No, no.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just very, yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. There's like this caricature of like the Santa Claus Martin Luther King that's been like kind of invented. It's like
Yeah,
y'all would have hated MLK back in the day.
correct. And like this peaceful thing, but MLK was strapped. He's from the
MLK
South.
was about that life. MLK is about that life.
He was strapped. Like that peaceful stuff is one thing, but he was always guarded. Like this idea, like somebody said, romanticizing history is absolutely ridiculous, and it's not
Yeah.
real. It's
Yeah.
not real, and they absolutely use that. And I'm like super. duper not a fan of like liberal progressive whiteness. Like just like MLK's, they are the biggest hindrance for us to move forward in anything radical or
Yeah,
anything deconstructing. Like today's progressive is yesterday's moderate. They're the biggest problem.
absolutely, without a
Yeah,
question, without a question.
no
And
doubt.
I've been hearing. I'm not super duper well versed on what's happening all over the world, but I hear even today compared to just other parts of the world right now. But that's still the case.
Yeah, because it's a comfortable space, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like when I was talking to people about voting for Biden, I was like, white people are voting for Biden for their comfort,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
they did not want to be like thought of as a tiki torch white. That's what I call those people like for Trump, are like tiki torch white.
Uh huh.
But like, I really like Trump was the first representation that real people had of you could actually become a president. So I get why, he talked like normal people. He didn't even fucking know he was the president of Puerto Rico. I mean, like, of course, regular people, right? Like the average education in America, of course he was appealing.
Yeah.
Duh. So like, but like that spaces is like they've like never been. They're not gonna ever be rich enough to actually be in the ruling class,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
they can leverage their whiteness enough
Uh huh.
to be thought of or seen as such.
Yeah.
And they're probably like far enough removed from being like how whiteness separates them in that hierarchy. They're no longer white trash. They probably moved up in generational poverty and gotten out of that, left their people behind. And
Yeah.
so they don't rock the boat because like I'm comfortable and I'm like, fuck your comfort. I'm,
That yes. That's a
I'm
sermon.
like,
That is a full complete sermon.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm okay.
And it's like weird. So it's so weird. So a phrase that I learned recently that I like to bring to mind all the time is this idea of being in the arena, but also being in the balcony. So, we're like right in the thick of all this stuff, but what does it look like to kind of pull back and get that broader perspective?
Yeah.
And that's something that's just so wild about people who get so enthusiastic about Trump and just those ideas. Like,
Yeah.
look at him as a symbol, right? Him as a person, but also him as a symbol, even probably scarier, the symbolic nature of that.
Yeah.
Um, and people who get really enthusiastic and excited about that, but not realizing that like white supremacy and white supremacy culture and racism, like it does some pretty disturbing things to white folks too. And I feel like I've heard you talk about that
Big
like a
time.
lot of times in your work, and I'd love
All
for
the
you to share more about what you think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do this work opposite to the way I've ever witnessed it done, and not trying to say like I created or invented this. It's just it doesn't ever make sense for me. Like as I sat in many spaces, like I've shared I'm mixed ancestry, right? I'm Irish and Black,
Hmm.
and so I had to do a lot of my own unpacking of my whiteness and the way I myself was raised and socialized around whiteness, and I through
Yeah,
my own decolonization work, I realized like this has nothing to do with skin color. It's just what you
yeah.
could leverage.
And
It was
let me,
lying.
hey, Desiree, let me interrupt you for just a second.
Yeah,
I just want to echo what you just said. Uh, you being a mixed race person, who most places you go to, people are not going to see you and see white, right?
no,
But
ever.
yet you are talking about having to unpack your own whiteness
Yes.
as a clearly brown skinned woman.
Yeah.
So how much more so, for folks who are visibly seen as white, does that unpacking need to happen,
It's
right?
so much. So much. Let me tell you. If I bumped it, listen, I am so glad that the internet did not exist when I was 18. Because 18-year-old me in sociology class with a very black professor, I loved the class, and W.E.B. Du Bois was my final paper, and I did the work, and it was great. But like 18-year-old me was a whole white woman Republican. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm like so fucking glad that the internet did not exist because
So
that means
I'm gonna need some photographs now.
I mean, I still look the same. But like my mind, that's how I
Yeah.
know that it's a mindset. Listen to me. I'm talking about all of the talking points. all of the fucking talking points, right? And I was like, well, my grandparents were immigrants. Not all white people were rich. We didn't have a silver spoon. What are you talking about? Like, slavery was so long ago. Who's stopping you? Why are you standing on the corner? Like, dead ass. I might actually still be a registered Republican. I'm not sure because I've added it so much. But like literally, it was so fucking bad. And then like my friend Jason, we were out doing some A&R work, and I was like 28 years old. This is how long it took me to realize like I was white.
That's a trip. That's a trip.
No, the fucking trip was realizing I was white because I'm obviously visibly not.
Yeah.
But my whole fucking life, I lived, moved, walked, acted, spoke. The microaggressions. I even had to talk to my husband. I was like, why the fuck did you stay? Like, because then I look back, like, and I'm like, oh, my poor black friends. Like, I was just a horrible. It was just terrible. It was terrible. So anyway, the that opened me up to realizing that it was a mindset. It was something that could absolutely be pathologized, something that could be deconstructed, and something to heal from
Yeah.
because it's healing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, so who does this impact more? And like, while obviously us as black people, you know, like other people of color, et cetera, and the indigenous are impacted deeply,
Yeah.
white people are the crux. Like we keep saying, like, oh, black liberation means liberation for all, and I'm like, no, white liberation is liberation
Mm.
for all, right? If you
Yeah.
keep the abuser, they no longer abuse,
Yeah.
right? Like, because we're all just like DV victims, and white
That's a
supremacy
great analogy. That's a great
is
analogy.
is the abuser, right? Like no matter what, like we can't leave, right? We don't have the money to leave, like all of the same things. So like that's pretty much how I do it. I like mix like micro and macro, and I'm like, this is the same thing, just on a bigger scale
Yeah.
energetically. And so for me, it has to start with the person who's harmed first. And white people were aggressed by supremacy culture before they ever encountered other people. They
Hmm.
lost all of their culture, and I realized that because I was so deeply raised. My mother was very proud to be Irish, right? Like,
Hmm.
and that was a part of my upbringing. And then when I met white people who were just white, I was like, what do you mean you're just white? Like,
Oh, when did that happen?
oh God, I'm embarrassed. Do you really want to know the truth?
Oh, of
I,
course. Now I really do.
I was like, come here, don't tell nobody. I was like 21.
Oh wow.
I grew up in New York City.
Was it like a super Irish community?
Well, no, not at first, because my mother was with a black man, so that wasn't happening, right? Like, so we lived in a super black neighborhood.
I see. I see.
Like, we lived in a very black neighborhood and lots of Puerto Ricans, a couple of Guyanese folks. You know what I'm saying? I grew up
Yeah.
in High Point in the South Bronx. But then when my father died, my mom moved. So yeah, we moved to an Irish neighborhood. And yes, and like, but what it is that New York City is an immigrant town.
Hmm.
Like these people are, my mother's a first generation American. So these people don't identify as anything but their ethnicity.
Hmm.
Like, oh, I'm Italian, I'm Yugoslavian, I'm Albanian, I'm Irish, I'm German. Like that was just normal for me to like know, see, look, hear other people's languages. So
Yeah.
it was when my first husband was in the military and we were stationed at Grand Forks Air Force Base,
Where's that at?
North Dakota.
Oh.
Oh,
Okay. How old were you during that time frame?
20.
Okay.
Between 20 that we did 6 years, so between 20 and 26.
Yeah.
But I lived in England after there. But anyway, that is when I found out that there was just white people out here whiting with no ethnicity. And I was like, oh. So dealing with them first kind of heals that wound, right? Like that ancestral healing of everything they lost, their language, their culture. And if
Yeah.
they can connect to that, they can understand why we are fighting so hard because it's still new for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so long for them. What they're doing is just perpetuating that abuse, just like in
Hmm.
a.
Yeah.
Well, my daddy beat me. His daddy beat him. He's just fine. That's what they sound like to me when they're like, "Get over it." I'm like, listen, let's deal with the abuse that you suffered.
Hmm.
Let's heal from that to then you would stop abusing other people. And let's all
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the other stuff, that I hear that word deconstructing, like that deconstructing work of figuring out, what's the stuff that I heard, what's the stuff that I learned even growing up, just in
Yeah.
my own house, in my own family, and I'm remembering. I don't often remember comments, but I'm remembering a comment.
Look at
Oh,
that's my neighbor from England. I
who
love
is?
Sharma Cross. She said, "What about you? When you moved to the very white street in Pembroke?" I loved.
Oh, I don't see your comments. Apparently, I have different comments. So
Oh,
yeah,
right. Oh, because we're on our own.
yeah, yeah.
I loved living in England. I loved it because you guys are not just white; you're English. Like so, it's like, meh.
Yeah.
Like because at least then there's a culture. Like when people become just white, they lose a culture.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question about that. Let me ask you a question about that because I feel like me personally, I feel torn. Like that's a conversation that happens, but I feel like it's not really brought directly into the forefront. Like this idea of even like white folks calling themselves white as opposed to calling themselves like European American or even choosing to self-identify more specifically like Irish American, Italian, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I always feel torn on that. And the reason why I feel torn is because I have that awareness of the ways in which whiteness I'm gonna make up a word like de-ethnicities people basically and just disconnects you from disconnects white folks from their history
Yeah.
and from their culture and from their heritage. And
Correct.
there's something really important to having connection to your ancestry in
So
that way.
important.
And
Yeah.
but then I have sort of a feeling too that sometimes when I see white folks in particular that will say, I choose to call myself European, or whatever the thing is, because I have like this gut feeling that that is a way of sort of separating themselves. Like I'm not like those white people. I
Yeah.
identify as,
Yeah.
Irish American or, whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
And so I always feel like a little torn on that because I can see how the construct of white is all of these very intentionally violent things historically and
Hmm.
et cetera and today. Um, but it feels weird when it seems like people are trying to like separate themselves from the current reality of that. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. And yes,
Yeah.
I and that is kind of where I explain, like again, like that micro macro kind of energy.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
you can self-identify as whatever you want, but
Uh
then you
huh.
have to recognize that there is a system of whiteness that doesn't give a fuck about how you feel, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
I explain to people all the time, I am Irish. I don't even need to tell anybody I'm black. Obviously, I'm black. Look at me. I am complected beyond the point of what's allowed for whiteness, right? So
Yes.
like I've opted out. Like I've been pushed out of the White House. So like I could feel whatever I want to feel, right? I
Yeah.
could learn play lig, I could fucking clog dance, I could do all of the things. I cannot pretend that there is not a system that's gonna register me, clock me, and treat me like I'm black anywhere,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? So like a lot of white people do that. And what I then bring them back to the reality is you can absolutely be all of those things, but you cannot pretend that the system does not treat you like just a white person. The system
Yeah.
doesn't give a fuck that you're Irish. Does
Yeah.
not
That's
care.
great.
To the contrary, it's going to force you out of your Irishness, right? I even talked about that with my aunt when I was on vacation last week, right? We were talking about things like that. And I was like, Auntie Drew, why don't you speak Gaelic? And I was like, because grandma did. Why don't you? And she's like, because it wasn't allowed. I was like, and that's the violence of whiteness.
Mm.
It's forcing you. Whiteness as a system is non-consensual. It doesn't ask you, hey,
Mm.
I was wondering, would you like to give up everything and become white? It's gonna take your shit until you
Yeah.
do something about it. And if you don't fight back against that, even as a white skinned person, and like demanding that the system is dissolved so you could reclaim who you are, then welcome to your non-consensual whiteness.
Mm. I'm not gonna lie, that kind of gave me chills low key. I love how you phrased that. That was really powerfully stated. That's why I'm like, we gonna do this live. We're gonna do this live. That's a gem right there. That's a gem right there. And that's
Right?
like, I've heard one of my colleagues will say, about how racism dehumanizes all of us.
Yeah,
And it looks very different. Obviously it looks very different, but the violence is still what the violence is.
yeah.
Um, And I got, yeah, I feel you. So one of my commenters has some really good stuff in here. The same person, I see you, Mortagu. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. So those of us reared on James Baldwin were influenced to reject whiteness while recognizing it. And then
Yes,
the same person saying, I wish that their comments were combined. I wish that too. That'd
I
be
wish
nice.
that too. Whatever.
So I will just tell you just dope stuff that I'm seeing in here. I'm going to just say it out loud so you can hear it too. But
I'm with
yeah,
that.
that idea of, yeah, this someone else is saying, you're like what you said about whiteness being non-consensual.
Yeah.
That language is like just perfection because there's so many connotations to the phrase non-consensual,
So
and I
listen,
feel like those are so important to have those connotations. But please go
it
ahead.
is
What'd you go?
really important. So like that concept and that idea is definitely not my own, right? But White Woman Whisperer talks about it a lot. Like she does these. She really has these really cool games, right? So it's like I really like that. That's the white in me, right? Like ooh, something to play with. So like she'll go like R blank. Wait. R-A blank E. Which one is it? Because it's
Mm,
the same. It's the same. Like rapist, racist. It takes. It just takes. And it
yeah,
gives you nothing. And it's all about power. It's all the same thing. Bree does says talks about that too. So like I'm not the only one that speaks about the non-consensual nature of whiteness, because it really just isn't. And in
yeah,
every single thing, like when you go through those pillars, those 15 pillars of white supremacy, you will see exactly how non-consensual it is. It never asks, it takes. And so for me, the work of shifting the narrative and putting it on white people takes us out of victimhood, right? Like the idea of like, but why are they touching me? Like, stop asking these questions. They touching you because they have no boundaries. Because nobody asked them anything. Because they live a non-consensual life, right? Like this is what you're supposed to look like. I remind them that these things of oppression were created for white people. They
hmm
had zero intention of integrating black people into society.
yeah,
So like you can't help me because it was never meant for me. This was
yeah,
meant for you. You were meant to look this way, talk this way, act this way. Your hair needed to be straightened. Or they didn't give a fuck what we look like as
yeah,
long as it was sellable.
yeah, yeah.
That's for
That's
you.
facts.
Hierarchies of whiteness. So you need to unpack it, because when you guys unpack it and when you dismantle it, you get free. And then you can leave us the fuck alone. Because that's all we want.
And you know what? You're making me think too that I see something that is so interesting about how that plays out specifically in the United States, because like the United States propaganda, right? It's like all about we're freedom and liberation and like innovative thinking, and so I see all these ways that, particularly in response to like our type of education that we get out in videos and whatnot.
Hmm.
I think especially for me, if I'm talking about something that might be maybe a touch more like technical or more sort of like I'm just getting cerebral on this particular topic, that I'll see like especially like white guys that will have these kind of matter of facts, angry responses to that type of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And then also with this energy as if they're saying something that's really unique and
Yeah.
really innovative and brand new to the conversation,
Yeah.
not even realizing that it's literally a script. Like it's the script that they're learning about how white supremacy needs to dominate over everything.
That's literally individualism, though, isn't it? Right? Like it's the
Yes,
isolation that whiteness
yes,
causes. It's that I'm the only one. Like watch me with this brilliant thought I've had. No, you fucking did not. There's only but so many words within the English language. Like I assure you, it's been said before. I promise
yeah, yeah. And that's a funny thing too. This is a tangent, but it's just kind of funny. Like I and I will say a not terribly distant past, I used to write a lot of hip hop music and
you.
like
Okay.
record stuff. Like
Oh,
I like legit have like a SoundCloud page and everything from this
I
form,
want that
former.
link. I'm gonna need that. I'm gonna
I'll hit you.
need
I'll hit you up on the side later on.
that.
But
Okay.
it's like yeah. I remember like one time like writing a lyric, and I'm like, "Ooh, this is gonna kill him right here." And then like a month later, hearing that same lyric like on the radio, like, "Dang, how'd he come up with that? Like that was my super original lyric that nobody ever thought of before."
Ever. Listen, funny story, and like maybe like 10 years back, and I swear to God, before that damn. So I used to always be like deuces, like, and I would just have like yo deuces, and then that fucking song came out, and I was like, somebody said that shit.
Somebody's recording your stuff.
Somebody said that shit, but but in my mind, I came up with deuces, and now I'm singing
Yeah.
the fucking song and making money off of my catchphrase. It is
That's
very interesting,
hilarious.
yeah, how like that mind like works like that. Like we're not, and that, but that's the beauty of it, is that when you start really realizing we're not so individual, we are absolutely inextricably connected. We are
Yeah.
community. It's about breaking down the walls that divide us
Yeah.
and dismantling that system, because until that system is dismantled, there is no way to have community cross lines,
Yeah.
because it's just an unsafe thing. And that's exactly why there, every time that tries to happen, there's always a death behind it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Always. Somebody is murdered when they try to bring those two lines together, because it is needed, because that would absolutely destroy the whole system.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's another thing too, where like the kind of the structures or maybe more it's like kind of the subconscious thinking that gets laid over that is white supremacist in nature. Like sort of this idea that white people are just kind of inherently the smartest and kind of know all the stuff and have the best ideas on how to do things. And you see that on the blatantly hateful people, but you also see that on like progressive liberal ally people, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's, I think when I think about this idea of collectivism and community, to me, that like, if it wasn't so personally harmful to me and us and people who are, look like us, that would like, it makes me sad because there are so many ways that I see that black and brown people, like we know how to do community. And even when we're in spaces where like my direct neighborhood, there's barely any black people, but I still know how to at least find some spaces of community, right? Like the fact that, you and I can hop on a live and, like we have not had any individual one-on-one speaking conversations, but we just able to chop it up and connect. It's like, I feel you, you see me, like all that stuff. And I've done this
It's
in
a
other spaces too. And I led like a whole like 9-month program, like anti-racist leadership program with a couple of colleagues that also do this work. And it was super dope.
okay.
But we did caucus breakouts too. So I would lead the Black Caucus group. We had a
Mhm.
white lady who would lead the White Caucus group, and then a Mexican American man who would lead the basically other people of color group. That's just how it worked out for
Yeah.
the breakdown. And
Yeah.
like we would then process everything as leaders after the session was over, and every single time um, there will be my friend who do the POC group, like, oh man, we had this, we hit it off, we connected, this really came to life. Every time my group, it's like we took 15 minutes to even get to the question because we were just chopping it up. How are you doing? You said you had this thing going on. What's up with you? And then every single time the white group, like they would immediately answer the 2, 3 questions and then like silence for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
It was like this,
Yeah.
this difficulty to just connect and have
It's
community and
so painful to watch and
yeah,
to witness, because yes, and like, because I grew up, because I'm gonna tell you what, for me, like, poverty is the great equalizer, right? Like, because inside of poverty nobody gives a fuck about anything else because we're all poor. So like none of that other shit matters, right? Like we gotta eat and we're gonna focus on that. And then also, because of that upbringing in New York City, while it was not gentrified, while it was not homogenous, to watch. So I know it's possible. So again, it's what made me realize that whiteness literally is a fucking it is a mental disorder. Like, coming into alignment with whiteness as a functioning system,
yeah.
literally for me is a personality disorder. Like, it's pathology it
Wow.
healed from, and you could
Yeah.
get away, because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
watch white skinned people have community. Right, like I've watched it with my own eyes, right? And
Yeah.
very much so, because again, New York City, when I was coming up, was very immigrant. It was not. So these white skinned people were coming over from their country, still
Yeah.
doing their dancing their dances, eating their eats,
Yeah.
raising kids together. It is absolutely the American structure of whiteness that
Yeah.
separates them from that and gives this false sense of superiority because it's a bully, right? It's
Hmm.
always a bully. Bully's always like it's a bully. Like I said, it's non-consensual, right? And it's a bully
Hmm.
kind of shit, right? Like so, the bully's like, "Give me your money, give me your line." Boy, I'll beat your ass. Leave me alone, right? Like, and like, always the bully is trying to pick on somebody who's not bothering them,
Yeah.
minding their business. They are
Yeah.
minding their business. They're in their little nerd group, right? Like, and now
I see it.
you want to come fuck with them, and they're not even bothering you.
Yeah. I see.
So
You know what?
it's
I'm
a bully.
remembering. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't want
No,
to. I don't. I'm just thinking about like a specific, and I'm not going to name this person just because it's like kind of it was just like a painful situation that I saw. But especially like when those intersections start coming together. So this was a friend who is a black fat woman.
Mhm.
And so there was like a post that she put out where she was just like, check out this dress I got. And just like smiling, music is poppy, having a good, like
Like,
nice
hey,
little summer dress, just like doing her own thing. And then one of the comments was something like, shut up, big lips.
see, non-consensual as fuck, bitch.
And she
First
just
of all,
minding
I didn't
her
even
own
ask.
business. Yeah. She just minding her own business, having a happy, joyful moment. But then
And
something in that whiteness is just activated to just,
it's
oh, I have
not.
to chop you down.
It's void, right? Like the video that made me go viral on here was like why white people need ancestral healing, and that shit
Mm.
like. And I was like, oh, what? Like, oh, I'm like at 10,000 followers. That's crazy. Like, I don't like. My husband was like, yo, 10,000 people haven't even looked at me in my life. I love him. Anyway, and it's true, right? Because bullies, why do bullies bully? Because they're being abused, or
Hmm.
there's some type of they don't really have friends. There's no real whiteness energetically exists here, right? Like you have all of these other energy points, all of this depth. That's why I'm like, no depth, no range.
Mm.
All of this in anybody's energetic practice, like like Kundalini, there's an arc, in Hinduism there's the chakras, like there's like in Irish Celtic it's like three cauldrons, and the whole thing is there's energy centers throughout
Yeah.
the entire body. Whiteness exists here. It's
Just
cerebral.
specifically, yeah. Yes,
It's
yes, 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 yes.
it's cerebral. It's just something to be thought and to be spoken. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel anything. It doesn't connect. There's no intuition inside of it because you cannot have intuition because you need to be thinking and looking pretty and smile.
Des. So, oh my God. So that's literally, so I've got like, I got my little notepad on my phone with just all these ideas of stuff I want to talk about eventually. That is a thing I want to talk about. And I haven't like figured out what language I want to use to like put it in like a TikTok video.
Yeah, yeah,
But that exact idea about how whiteness absolutely it keeps us in our logic space. I think it also is tied into even the white supremacy culture tenet of worship of the written word.
yes.
And then there's also I don't remember if this is a white supremacy culture or just like a general fallacy, but like what's it like? I forget what it's called. Something like deferring to authority figures, like all those sorts of different things.
I'm like, yeah,
Um,
because it can't do anything. This is why, like, it's so funny, right? Because I joke with my followers, I was like, I'm not giving you a fucking book. You're not getting a course. You just send me a Venmo, Cash App, or like support me monthly. And like, I'm not giving you any fucking courses. I'm tired. I'm done with courses. You're not taking course. Just talk to people. Get out there and fucking talk to people and have an experience, lived experiences. But I also realized like that's like so radical that it's like breaking down. Like I can't, Des. I need somebody. I you're cut for me. So like I started doing like little courses and little things and stuff.
At least
Uh,
sort of, like on ramps, right? We can
yeah,
work
it's
with some on
like
ramps.
okay. Let me ease you guys out of it. Yes, appeal to authority because it really doesn't know. And I say it not as the people, but because you are programmed. It's a programming, right? It's like
Yes.
trying to take like a DOS program and upgrade it, or like I got to remove this to put in a new one, right? Like,
Yeah.
but like the programming in there always defers to authority. Like,
Hmm.
what am I supposed to do? Like, and it means
Hmm.
that. And it's like, it's also like that slippery slope of like where it can get harmful, right? Because like, again, no depth, no range. So no connection to self,
Yeah.
to have the intuition that maybe I don't need to do that. Or maybe, I could talk to this person. So it's like there's so much energetic work that needs to be done in order to like break out of that. Like you have to open up to yourself because people can only meet you as deeply as they met themselves. This is why
Mm,
I'm like, no, white people can't lead anything intersection. Absolutely not. No. If
mm,
you see a
mm.
white person and they are leading it, it is not a safe space. It is not an intersectional space. And it is
Yeah.
really not even a learning space because they don't know who they are. How can you
Mm.
teach anybody else? You don't know. Like my famous question on this fucking app is like, who were you before you were white? Like you can't teach me shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
even know who you are. You have no knowledge of self on a real cellular level. Like you don't
Yeah.
know who you are. So you cannot teach me anything. I promise you, nothing. I will learn nothing from you. Nothing.
Yes.
Nothing. Save your time.
Yes, yes, and I definitely, I'm reminded of a post I put up a long time ago where it was just like 10 examples of institutional or systemic racism, and I was just giving like all
Mhm.
these statistics, like all these ways that it shows up in statistics, and I had so many white men who were either telling me that my statistics were misleading, or hey, you're not using these stats right. Can I talk to you more? Can I tell you? Can I have a conversation with them? No. Oh, you don't want to
No.
just have a friendly? No, no,
Oh
thank you.
my God.
No, I'm good.
No. Mm-mm.
And I'm thinking about like,
No.
you're making me think too about,
Just
like,
like no is a
huh? Uh-oh, are we still there? I think we're lagging
I
a
said
little
no
bit.
is a complete sentence. Like no. Yeah,
Absolutely, no is absolutely a
I'm
complete
still here.
sentence. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. My phone is a little laggy, but I can hear you. I can hear you though. Are we? Come on, internet. Are you still there, Desiree?
Like
You're kind of coming
I
in and
am.
kind of coming out. Say something else.
I'm still
Okay, I think we're kind of sort
something
of back. I don't know what's going on with the internet.
else.
Oh yeah. So folks, I don't know what's going
See,
on.
I
My
thought
stuff is looking super
it
laggy,
was
and then we keep talking at the same time after the lag.
oh,
Go ahead, Desiree. You say something, and I'll
damn
listen and
it.
I'll
It's
respond.
okay. I am somebody keeps saying that I am freezing, so I'm trying to see if I'm still freezing.
Okay.
Did you hear that?
You're still kind of freezing and coming in and out a little bit.
Okay. I'm gonna click. Okay. On my end, my people said I'm good now.
Okay. Okay. I think we let's keep chatting. So
Okay, keep going.
yeah,
Tell
we
me
were
about your
talking
10
about
things.
what now?
Your 10 things.
Well, I don't remember. I don't even know what we're talking about. What 10 things were we talking about?
We were saying no, white people can't teach us anything, and you were saying like your 10 things of like, I don't fucking know.
Damn you, internet! That's okay because
It's
we got
gone now.
enough.
It's all
We
gone.
got enough that we can keep it. We can keep it going. But we were talking about how whiteness like disconnects the mind from the intuition, and it's making me. Oh, thank you. Someone in the chat reminded me what I was talking about. Thank you. I think it's Enan. I was talking about the systemic racism stuff and how people were like, can I tell you about how you're using these stats misleadingly? And like, nah, I'm cool. I'm cool.
No.
But yeah, that's definitely this idea about how whiteness keeps you cerebral and disconnects you from your intuition and disconnects you from your instincts and disconnects you from even being able to trust yourself. And we're talking about like,
Yes,
yeah, like you were talking about your
that's
own.
a problem.
Yes, that is a huge problem. That's a huge problem because that's like that's fertile soil for like propaganda. That's fertile soil for anybody with the right
Yeah,
authority to tell you anything, and you have no
yeah.
discernment. Like you have no intuition to be able to tell what you should be doing.
Listen, gonna interject there, and I hope you still hold your thought.
Please go ahead.
Because yes, because like when you sit down and you really look at, that's why I'm like pathologize whiteness. When you really look at the structures that whiteness had for community, and again, when I say whiteness, I mean after you've been stripped of all of your culture and they made you white, is literally church. That's it. That is the only place that whiteness provided for community,
Yeah.
right? Because really, like white supremacy is really just Christian supremacy, right? Like this started with the Catholic Church forming and being like, yeah, if nobody else is fucking Catholic, kill them. And that's it. Like that's it. Like, are
Yeah.
you gonna be a Catholic? You should and so that was it. So literally the only place that they have community is church, where obviously, you have this one person, usually a man. It plays right into paternalism of those pillars of, white supremacy, telling you and like it's feeding you day in, day out, either or thinking you're going to heaven or hell, good or bad, this and the other thing. And so when you see that, it's so easy this is why they fall into cults, right? Like this is why when
Mm.
you're watching the news, see some shit, you're like, I know that was a white person. I know. I don't even need to ask some white people shit, like because it's white people shit. Like that's just what
Yeah.
it is. It's because they think because whiteness is homogenous,
Hmm.
because whiteness is a creation and it gave a set of rules. So like right there what you said is that like when a leader, I'm like so mindful of the things I say, and I have an online healing community, and I intentionally have other people, thank you, I intentionally have other people and leaders, and then people that like peer group leaders doing it because I don't want to be the end all be all. Because
Yeah.
they can get caught up in a cult with ease. And
Yeah.
it is imperative if you are going to be leading spaces where you are guiding white people to remember that like honestly, it is very much childlike. Like going back to when you were like you have mom energy. It's like I know my children worship me. Like it's what they know, right?
Yeah.
But that's why I'm super mindful of keeping other adults in their life that they
Yeah.
could emulate, that they could look up to, that they could trust, because they have to learn to trust themselves. And so,
Yeah.
like, my goal is to get them to, like, ask yourself that. Does that seem like some right shit to say?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Where did that
That's
thought come?
fire.
Yeah, where did that thought come from? Like, where did that
Hmm.
thought? Your first thought, I tell them all the time, like when I'm doing decolonization work, your first response is that program response, right?
Yeah.
Like it is. If you grab your purse, you're not a bad person. Like get that out of your mind. That's that either or thinking. I'm terrible. No, you've been programmed, right? Like so now ask yourself, take a deep breath, loosen the clutch on that fucking purse, and sometimes people get robbed. It happens. Now it's tell you, it's probably going to be easier if your purse is loose.
That's
So to get back to
hilarious.
you, really a game of like getting back to self, right? Like it's a journey to self because that's what whiteness has stripped from all of us.
Yeah.
Like it strips it, and it's literally white people. Like I want white people to really realize if like this is a great conversation, but if they take only one thing from this, just realize they are actually just using your white body. That's why they keep expanding whiteness, so you could uphold about 20 super rich white people. That's it.
And that's like the Scooby Doo villain when you take off the mask and
Yes,
oh, it was actually you, Farmer Joe.
it's like literally fucking like I always think of like the Wizard of Oz, right? Like you remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
Like and Dorothy gets
absolutely.
there, and this motherfucker's still cranking away. He's like, oh, I'm the great Oz, and she's like, I'm looking for you, motherfucker. Get your ass from out of here. He's like, no, close the curtain, and I'm like, we see you,
We see you. We see you. Yeah, yeah,
we see you. Because that's all it is. It's propping up the ruling class, and they just use white bodies to do that. And like the more you divest from whiteness, the more you wake up to that and be like, no, because they're actually the minority. Because it's literally that's it. Whiteness is created to hoard resources that was stolen,
yeah.
and that's it.
Are you
Nothing.
familiar? And I'm only a little bit familiar with her work, but have you heard anything about Frances Cress Wilson?
No.
So again, I only know a little bit about her work. Brilliant black woman scholar, but she basically sort of in her work has essentially boiled down a lot of what she observes with whiteness and white supremacy, basically boiling it down to fear of extinction, essentially. Like whiteness is
Yeah.
afraid that it will be extinct. And so therefore it'll do all these desperate things to preserve itself. And it'll be very strategic. And what if we do
Yeah.
this? And my wife, she showed me this video that was so disturbing. I don't remember who the people were, but it was like a couple of like older billionaire white guys, and they're like talking to these young African women, and they have like this whole thing where they are like trying to pay these African women to like basically like do something or get something from their DNA or something just really sci-fi creepy sounding. Like they're trying to
Yeah.
basically like do something with black DNA to like preserve their white
Correct.
lineages
Their
or just
whiteness.
something just wild.
Weird.
It was like what is happening here?
Yeah. Scarcity energy, right? Like, so I started this work as a spiritual work, right? Like, and that's what I had been like energy worker, right? Like, and so
Mm.
like when you like shadow work, it's like this is that like next step.
Yeah. Okay.
Start integration of all of the parts, right? And then I further went on like to do like IFS training. I didn't go the therapist route because I could not talk shit the way I talk underneath those guidelines, right? We really to decolonize. Um, so because I couldn't do that, I said, fuck that. I just take all the classes and the trainings anyway, just like so I have some knowledge and
Yeah.
like toolkits to reach into. But like I don't need the licensure. I don't need white man's paperwork to know what the fuck I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? Like I know what
Yeah.
I'm doing. I got this.
Hmm.
So ADHD brain, I have no idea what the fuck I was going with. Okay, we're done.
Well, you're talking about being energy work. You're talking about being energy work.
There we go. So it's scarcity energy because again, like quite literally, whiteness was created 1619 on the banks of Virginia when they brought the first enslaved Africans over. And white skinned people were like, oh, how do we separate ourselves from these people so we can justify one, the violence that they have been doing for thousands of years to white
Hmm.
people? Like, I'm like, do y'all not know your history of
Right.
how you became white? It was violent as hell. There was nothing like, hey, like I said, it's non-consensual. It wasn't like, hey, so if you could just sign right here, like, no, no. It took because
Yeah.
they didn't give a fuck about it. So when they did that, when they made that delineation, first of all, if they were able to bring enslaved Africans over and human trafficking, right, of the day, these are wealthy people, right? These
Yeah.
are like the aristocrats left over, the royalty left over from Britain that can no longer return home.
Yeah.
So like these blue bloods, pedigrees, they treat themselves like dogs, right? Like they intermarry and do all of that. So it's literally all of these other white people, like in that hierarchy of white people, literally just uphold these ruling classes. Like
Yeah.
these, and not in the weird, don't anybody fucking take it and do your weird Soros anti Semitic bullshit, because that's not what we're talking about here.
No.
But like literally, there are those like pedigree American families, right? Like that waspy culture that that's all they're using white bodies for. And that it's so cannibalistic.
Hmm.
It is so it will eat its own, it does not care. And it will find ways to not go extinct because like it needs that. It's that scarcity energy. They come from having lost things and they're like, okay, it's why billionaires exist.
Hmm.
Because somebody with some fucking sense would be like, okay, I'm good. like,
Yeah. Like I'm set. I'm set for a couple
like
of lifetimes.
like 30 generations could live off
Yeah.
of 1 billion and what,
Right.
but because they're like so wrapped up in scarcity instead of abundance, right? Like, and that should also make white people realize that they don't give a fuck about you being white. Jeff Bezos could set white people straight for life and still be a billionaire.
I mean, he could do more than that. Like he could.
You know what I'm saying now? Like he could
Yeah.
get all them white folks on up out the trailer, right? He
Yeah.
could get health care in Alabama.
Hmm.
Okay. Every white person should be, if they really cared about white people, then every white person should be living in a nice house in the suburbs off of Jeff Bezos alone.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And he'd still be a billionaire. But no,
Yeah.
because they need that poor. They need the poor to keep up with capitalism. And that's all white people are doing, are working to fucking keep those little families wealthy in scarcity, energy feeling. That's it.
And that's, I feel like that's some of the like the illumination that happens or that hopefully happens in
Look at
people's kind of journeys.
Vanderbilt. I
You
was
said what?
literally going to say the Vanderbilt. Cassie said I'm a descendant of the Vanderbilts. I was literally going to say the Vanderbilts, but I did not. Like, I did not want to. But you used to talk shit about your family.
And it's a trip, you know, it's just a trip. Because I feel like that helps us to that helps us to peel back a lot of those layers because you see like the even the idea of the American dream, right? Like if you just work hard, you too can be Jeff Bezos, which of course is more like beyond bullshit, right? But when that's like the national, like that's the national identity, the national like ideals that this is what we're about, this is who we are, just work hard, and then all that sort of stuff continues to feed back into systems of capitalism that require us to bust our butt to the point of
Yeah,
exhaustion. And then we're
kill
so
ourselves.
tired. Yeah, we're so tired that we have no brain space to do anything else but just work, 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 and then distract, 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 distract. And I think, not to get this is a little tangent from what we're talking about at the moment, but that's part of why George Floyd's murder grabbed so much attention is because this pandemic was happening and you can't just do all your distractions. You're not even at the office doing your commute because everything is shut down. Sports are stopped.
Yes.
You can't go to the club. All you can do is just
Yeah.
we're all watching TV and watching the news together. And then something
Yes.
happens where like, nah, hell no, this is not okay. And then like stuff is happening all over the planet, right?
You want to hear something woo woo? Do you like woo
I
woo?
would love to. I do like woo woo. Yes.
Okay, come here. Let me like. So listen.
I'm listening. I'm listening.
So, literally at the time of George Floyd's murder, which I have not seen and will not see, like I don't do trauma porn. I fucking hate
Yeah.
people that tag me in it. Just drop that shit off in comments. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Facts.
Again,
Facts.
non-consensual.
Yes.
So, what was I going to say? So the planetary alignments, I shared it on my IG. The planetary alignments, like star patterns and everything, are at the exact same point as the American Revolution when Crispus Attucks, yes, another black man, was murdered in Boston, which started the Boston Tea Party.
Interesting. Interesting.
At the same time, right? Like, and then all of these things coming together, like America's Pluto return, which is about government and business and structures. It's fucking beautiful. Like the truth of the matter is we are absolutely living inside of this revolution that's happening now, and it doesn't need to be violent. It really
Yeah.
doesn't. Like it just
Yeah.
needs to be cohesive and it really needs to be heart centered, right? Like, because it was so violent because it was still patriarchal rule, right?
Yes.
Like, and that's
Absolutely.
what we gonna do, or we gonna kill some folks, and it's
Yeah.
like, but we don't have to. Like, I'm not opposed to it. I stay strapped wherever I go. You know what I'm saying? So like, I respect it, but there is a way to have a revolution that is at least heart centered. Not saying that
Yeah.
people won't get harmed, not saying that people won't like be felled or any of those things, but there is a way to have a heart centered revolution that we all like come together and we
Yeah.
could dissolve the system. That's like my
Yeah.
goal, is like to dissolve it. Like it just
Yeah.
it needs to go away. It's like America is like, first of all, we talk about the United States as if it's the whole of America. Let's like go like,
Right.
and it's a fucking republic. It's a business,
Yeah.
which can be dissolved. Like,
Yeah. And that's yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel yeah, I feel like there are very interesting things afoot currently that, I think in this very
yeah,
near future, some very, a lot of people are going to be surprised by just a lot of shifts that are happening that I think
so
absolutely
many.
speak to a lot of those things. You and my wife would have some very juicy conversations. Like she's super researches all that kind of stuff. And she's often like telling me like, "Hey, did you know?" And like we're having conversations about
Yeah.
Lionsgate the other day, and I'm catching what you're picking up. I'm picking up what you're throwing down. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Tell
like
her to text me because I would love that. I would love
okay,
that.
okay.
Love those conversations. Yeah.
Like that could it could be some
Because
that could be some stuff right there.
it's really important. And it's part of like that disconnect again that we were talking about where whiteness is so cerebral, right?
Hmm.
Like if it's not written, it's not true. Like it never happened. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's not real.
You know what? So there
Oh,
was
look at
a
he
huh?
was watching C or whatever. He sent me the Dr. Frances Cress West Welsing.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I got her last name wrong. That's yes. Thank you. I'm glad that somebody got your
No
back
problem.
over there.
Yeah, I
But
love
it's
him.
very,
He's the friend
very
that told
interesting.
me
Say that again. What
I
was
said
that?
he's my friend that I mean, he's my friend that told me that I was white, and I was like, "What?" So he took me on my journey, and like it's like I love black men, right? Like, cause he was the one who walked me hand in hand in this journey. Like, look, fam, you
That's
need to do
awesome.
something about yourself.
That's awesome. That okay. That makes sense to hear that you like have folks that cared about you and saw you in that space. Because that feels very similar to like the work that you do with people that you do work with. Like I see you, you can do better. So
You can,
let's.
yeah, because you have to unpack it. You really do, and it's constant. And if I didn't have that, like, so I give back what I had, right? Like,
Yeah.
again, we're still friends here. 43 years old now. Like, Jesus, like his baby's in high school. It's like, and this was like a 3 year old walking through my door. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like, and even still, right? Like, this is why we have to be mindful that the people that we call leaders or look up to as such or dub as such, because sometimes like I had no idea that this is where I would wind up on
Hmm.
TikTok, and now here I am, and I'm like, apparently I'm an educator. Okay, I'll take it.
Apparently so. Apparently so.
Go with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, to make sure that they're doing that work, right? Like your therapist needs a therapist, right? Like your
Yeah.
healer needs a healer. Like I still very much lean into him, right? Like I have to unpack my own biases and
Yeah.
I work with people and like that helped me. I always talk about Pam Iverson. She has a group on Facebook, Girls Growing, and those black women and non-men in there, man, it like I would not be who I am right now without this black man and those black women.
That's
So it's
dope.
like, of course I want to pay that forward, right? Like, because they
Hmm.
loved on me and let me be as white and problematic as I could be and be like, hey man, you are white womaning. Stop that shit. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Like what? What you talking
I'm
about?
white. Yeah, yeah. And it took a long time. Like this is not like I'm gonna take a fucking course and be an anti-racist, right? I'm not
Yeah.
You're not gonna take a week. It took me years to and still, like if I have to be 100% transparent, like I still have to unpack thoughts, right? Like I actually shared with my friend Jason, like I still have to turn around. Like when me and my husband was separated, I had to unpack, like, I was like, Black men leave families. And I was like, where the fuck did that
Mm.
come from? That's why I said your first thought is your program response. And I was
Hmm.
like, no, we broke up. Like, this is not Black men don't love their kids and leave,
Yeah.
like, but that is literally the program response. And that was in me. That,
Hmm.
and I
Hmm.
am like militantly Black, pro Black, believe in a Black family and all of that shit. And that still was the first thought that came to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, where did that come from?
Yeah. It's wild.
Okay, let's unpack. It's true. It's true.
Definitely.
I think
Definitely.
black people need talent. And I had a father. You want to go even crazier? I had a father in the home. So it is not even a daddy wound. Like I had
Yeah.
a black ass father. My father black as fuck. He looks like the original black man. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. But that's
Like
the
not
programming
Albie
though.
Short. The program.
Yeah. Albie Desiree. Why is Albie Shore your light skin reference?
Because I grew up in that time.
Like not Chris
And you know
Brown,
Albie
not
Shore was
Drake,
like,
not Drake.
no, because I'm fucking 12. You know what I'm saying? Like, no. Maybe my kids to him out. But I'll be sure was like I'll be sure was my time, and He's everything that we say light skinned dudes are.
I can tell you how I feel about you night and day.
About you. Yeah, no. My daddy was shaft in this motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Came through like, yeah. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
his blackness commanded, like dark 4C. He had the fro. He used to part that shit right there. Ooh, I love my daddy. So
I
like,
love
but
that.
look at that. Like that reverence that I had and that thought was still there. So
Yeah,
like imagine, like you said with me, like, so imagine being black, right? Even though like though I recognize the mixed part of it, and having black people, very unambiguously black, like people in my life, like my grandma, my cousins, my father, and still that program thought. So imagine white people that have
yeah,
never been exposed to black people or love black people. In
yeah,
2022, there are white people that have never even seen a black person in real life.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely.
So
Like
that
in the
work
United
needs to be
States.
done. Get in the fucking of America,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
these United States
yeah,
in this year, 2022.
yeah. And that's
And we forget about
yeah, for sure, for sure. But then still, obviously, have very strong opinions and thoughts and voice and all that kind of stuff about Black people.
it.
And it's
Right.
just yeah, yeah. I don't know where I was going with that, but it's just very interesting that is absolutely the truth. And there's not relationship, and there's kind of all this setup in terms of who knows stuff, who doesn't know stuff. And it's like
Yeah.
here's what I was going with this. There was a comment that I saw you make like months, maybe like a month ago, and I still remember this comment because it just caught me, where someone was talking about, I don't remember exactly what they were phrasing, but it was something like, why is it that I see, all the time, when like we as white people try to do better, and then it'd be like another white person that's like, it's not good enough, you're screwing up, da da da. And then your response was, because whiteness is violent, like whiteness is violence. Um,
It is.
and so it's just interesting, like you talked about earlier, about it, cannibalistic, and just like kind of all these very subtle cultural things that are happening in the background. That is like it's like this reinforcing cycle that makes it even more difficult to then sort of do that deconstructing work. So I love,
Yeah.
I love that you talk about facilitating community and spaces where people are, hopefully able to engage with each other and that kind of thing. And like very often, I will have people that will ask me really specific types of questions. Like, of course, there's book questions all the time. What's the book I should read? Blah blah blah. But then just like about
Yeah.
specific scenarios, like, hey, this thing happened. Like, what should I do, or how should I have handled this thing, and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And it makes me think about perfectionism as a white supremacy tenant. And I did a presentation recently, and this wasn't even a prepared part of what I was sharing, but it just came to my mind as I was talking about, like, just normalizing the fact that you're gonna mess it up, and you
You're
need
the
to
fuck
be
up.
ready for that. And what does it look like to recognize that you can make a mistake without being a mistake? And when when it's so
Ooh,
heavy that you
no,
messing up
no,
is
no, no.
who you are as a person. Oh, go ahead, please go ahead,
Bring
run it
that.
back. So I
No,
will say it
bring
again.
that back. Say it
Yes.
again, Pastor.
Yeah. Yes. It's so critical for people to understand that you can make a mistake without being a mistake. And I
Woo!
think about to all of the sort of like little child versions of people that show up in adults, like adult conversations with that sort of energy. And like,
Yes.
oh, this person screwed up, and I'm gonna like, punch them in the face. This white
It
person, I'm the woke white person.
my,
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I think it's that energy. It's that energy of, when I was a kid, this is how my dad treated me. This is how my mom treated me. I messed this thing up, and my parents withheld love from me, or they punished me because I made this mistake, or I did this normal childhood thing. And just how that
yeah.
cements into all these interactions later on in the future.
But that's the punishment versus accountability. Like inside of
Yeah,
whiteness, because these accountability is like, I'm like, you're not gonna get a pound of flesh. Like, I'm not giving you a pound of flesh. But this is literally their history. Like, think about where the term a pound of flesh came from. Because they meant that shit.
like
Right?
literally,
Like
yeah.
they meant a pound of flesh stripped from you for erring one time, for making a mistake. So, like, whiteness does not understand accountability versus punishment. It is
Mm,
so violent. Like, all of us got these violent actions, these beatings, and from whiteness. Because as a culture, how do you take? Nobody's handing you their culture. It's violently taken.
yeah,
It's beaten out of you. It's raped out of you. It is burned out of you. It is nobody is going to just hand it over. So it's historically violent.
yeah,
And then we learn these tactics out of fear or control. And so it just keeps perpetuating, right?
yeah.
Because, like, yes, I remember that because I always say, like, because violence is whiteness is violence. Like, that's my thing. And like, even like, it's why I correct white people because they'll be like, "Don't be asking her questions in this black woman space. You need a," and I'm like, "Hey man, first of all, I'm fucking talking. Like, like you hear
I'm
me?
here. I'm actually here.
Like, I swear to God, I could fucking answer for myself, and I'm super good at telling somebody to go fuck off and not talk to me.
Yeah.
Please do not jump over me to tell somebody not to ask me a question. Like, how fucking weird is that? Like, how weird is that? But that goes to that isolation, right? Like, I'm like, we are not monolithic. Whiteness is homogenous.
Mm,
Whiteness is a I actually create a space for people to ask me questions and feel comfortable doing so.
yeah,
Others don't
yeah.
respect their boundary. But that doesn't mean, and there's like black women that won't work with white people at all, or will tell
Mm,
them. For me, I'm not telling white women to go Google shit because I have zero time for them to try to fucking figure out what they're supposed to figure out. I'm not doing it, right? Like
uh,
I'm not doing it. Like, and there's ways to parent it. There's ways to guide it. There's ways to nurture it, right? My children cook. But I'm not sending them to the grocery store to buy the shit by themselves, right?
yeah,
Like, no. I bring the groceries in. I may even set it up on the table, right? Like, and everybody can do something, right? So
hmm,
somebody's cracking eggs, somebody's doing this. Everybody is participating, and they do it to their capacity and their ability with my supervision. So I
yeah.
make sure they don't burn down my fucking house. And that's how I feel about telling white women to go figure it out. Once they got that fucking white fragility book and they started doing book clubs, and I would join these things quietly, and I'm like, oh my fucking God, we're doomed. Oh, this is who, these are the leaders? This? No, 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 no. And so I recognize that there are black women that are like, fuck this, I'm exhausted. I don't want to do this work. And I fully support them doing that. They should still never be deferred to white people to do it. Find other black people who are doing it. It should never be deferred to them. Ever, ever, ever,
Can
ever.
I want to read you something. Because I'm curious. I'm very curious about how you'll respond to this. Because someone left a comment on my side that I'm positive other people are going to be feeling this too. It's like a
Okay.
push a pushback of sorts. But someone that's hearing what you're saying and saying that sounds maddening, and talking about infantilizing is super white supremacy. And I'm curious about like that sort of idea, about how you what your response is to that idea.
What I'm saying is infantilizing?
Yeah, that someone has that idea that, oh, that sounds like infantilizing white supremacy. And I'm curious about
Well,
what you
that's their unpack because whiteness infantilizes white women. Like
keep going, keep going, keep
that's
going,
not my
keep going.
problem. That's so like what happens is that like what white women don't seem to understand is you are your men. Like you are, I don't give a fuck who you and him are a pair. You could be NB, you could be fucking asexual, you could be a whole ass lesbian. You and him are a pair because whiteness was created to
Mm-hmm.
isolate everyone else outside of it. So y'all
Mm,
belong together like peanut butter and jelly. Period, point blank, full stop. So you take your trauma from the
mm-hmm.
patriarchy and whiteness and the violence of that. And then you want to leak and bleed that shit over here. I'm
Yeah.
not infantilizing anybody. I just said my 6-year-old cooks. You guys infantilize people. Your fucking 35-year-old kid is in the basement and you're still doing their laundry. That's a fucking. I got a 3-year-old that folds her clothes and puts them away because she wants to, because
Mm-hmm.
she's a part of community. I'm
Yeah.
not infantilizing. Actually, I'm empowering. I'm saying you are capable of doing certain things, but fam, you are not the motherfucking leader here because we have navigated you for 400 fucking years. Y'all
Yeah.
don't even know how you operate. How can you dismantle it? So no,
Oh,
it's not internalized. It's empowered. There we go.
yeah. So it looks like I misunderstood the comment, but I still needed you to say that because I've heard you talk about that. I've heard you talk about that before. Thank you for clarifying. The person is saying that the way people the way you're treated by white women, like white women are infantilizing you. That's what the person. So I want to
Yes,
mention their
yes.
clarification, but also
Go do that.
I really needed people to hear what you said. So I'm glad I
Mother.
misunderstood because that was very important what you just said. And then also Jennifer, I see the
Very
correction. I appreciate the correction.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not. I would never infantilize because, like, I think that what happens with that is that, like I said, it's that trauma from white supremacy and the patriarchy, right? Because, like, we as Black people are impacted by racism, obviously, and capitalism and all that other shit. But the very specific violence of whiteness that's geared to us is racism. The very specific violence that's geared to white people inside of that hierarchy of whiteness is classism, right? Like,
Hmm.
so, like, it's all of the things that come with classism, which is patriarchy, which is infantilizing, because you need these people to feel less than in order
Yeah.
to want to be doing better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm
Yeah.
aware of that. Like for me, I'm like, no, I want to empower you to do it. Like you could do it.
Yeah.
You just
Yes.
can't do it by
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's like a this is like super cliche, but it's like the give a person a fish versus teach the person to fish. And
very
so
much so.
what if I can teach you and give you like the tools to have this sort of
Correct.
this kit and
Yeah.
develop these instincts and blah 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 to
Right.
figure out
Because
what your role needs to be in that fight.
correct. For me, this is legacy work, right? Like if I died, I want to set it up so that like make shit
Yeah.
happen as a community. Like if I die, I don't want to, oh my God, we can't do the work. No, you could do the work. You could,
Yeah.
that's the point of empowering you. You could do the work. You just need to
Yes.
know it. If I'm trying to do it for you, if I'm doing everything, if I'm telling you what to do. And that's what happens when you go to these white healing spaces, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like this one leader, and it's like, I'm gonna charge you out, whatever, like, because know your worth, because white women are white men. Like that's it. Like they're just
Mm.
literally trying to win in capitalism and trying to be the top fucking oppressor. So they boss babe their way through fucking patriarchy, and it's like they're gonna charge you, they're gonna give you your fucking handout, they're gonna give you your worksheet, and then they're gonna tell you what you need to do, make you feel like you're a piece of shit because you haven't figured it out, and they just figured it out 2 months ago, and then you
Right.
leave and you got a certificate and a gold star, and you still don't know shit.
My work here is done. That's like, yeah, 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 yeah.
And they self-proclaim to be an ally, like we're fucking dogs. Like I'm like, you can't say you're an ally. We actually have voices. Like what's wrong with you? Like yeah.
Absolutely,
So yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
you
no,
could do
that's great.
internalized.
And it's interesting too, like just sort of this assumption of I surely as the woke white person am the person to do all the things and whatnot. Um, it's just so interesting how that flips where even those of us who are out here with the lived experience and with the study and with the depth that's needed, how that superiority like then sort of causes people to feel like, oh, I need to like this is what Desiree meant, or you need to like this sort of let me just kind of
Yeah,
come in and like that level of infantilizing that I think my commenter
yep.
was talking about, and it's so interesting because like when I see and this is especially when I see black women who are leaders in whatever space they're leading in their community, they're a director at their job or whatever the case is. Today, actually, with one of my clients I was meeting with this today, who was having some frustrating spaces where she had been saying all these sorts of different things in her organization about race and how it's coming out. And then I had the same conversation with the group, but I'm the one that was doing some of the talking. And people were like, "Oh, wow, that guy's got good stuff to say," even though it's the same stuff that she had already
Yeah,
said in previous meetings.
yeah. It's
So
because
it's just,
you are, sir. So apparently it matters. It's like
and that's why we got it. That's why is it? It might be Portia. I think Portia might have like her merch that talks about if your allyship is not
it's
intersectional, it's bullshit.
shit. Yeah,
Which
it's
is like,
yeah. I love it. I love it because it's true. It's absolutely true, right? And you will see that, right? And like, and it seeps into what bothers me is like, again, with like why they need to heal is because that shit seeps into our community,
Yeah,
right? Because
every time.
here's the truth is I refuse, I will never come into alignment with the fact that a black man can oppress me. Absolutely
Right.
won't. I refuse. Fuck white feminism. I refuse to come into alignment with that. No way, no how. And he damn sure cannot fucking oppress a white woman. And like that's how that stuff seeps in, right? Because
Mm,
now if we're sitting there and they're listening to you, I actually believe that this patriarchy thing is working for you. And I'm like, it's not. Because if they
right.
decided tomorrow that all of this shit, we're gonna lose rights and no voting, that black man is also gonna lose that shit. Like, it's
That's
no,
facts.
no, no. So, like, that's why that healing for me is so important because it really does seep in, right? Because that superiority that they're doing is actually has nothing to do with us.
Hmm.
I really need us as black people to internalize the fact, thank you, my love, that it has nothing to do with us. And it
Hmm.
has everything to do with their trauma inside of that little white hierarchy bubble that's created, right? Like, so this needs to be like, it's really there needs to be seen. It's a lot of like daddy issues, a lot of like their men don't see them and respect them, right? Like, look at us having this conversation, right?
Yeah.
I feel very respected. I feel very seen. You're like, you're not mansplaining in anything, whether we agree or we don't disagree, or you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I got you.
And that's usually my interaction with black men,
Hmm.
right? Like that's like you said, we chop it up, we have community. If we not fucking with each other, no, I ain't fucking with you, then that's cool. Like it's not like they're people like oppress me, like you dumb bitch. Like what the fuck? So
Right.
like go suck my dick. So like, and we just keep it put.
Yeah.
So, like, this idea is really, they just want to be seen. So that's how I look at it and why I have like the approach that I have. Like, look, boo, I get it. You want to be seen, but understand that because whiteness is violence, your existence and doing that here in this space makes it
Yeah.
violent for us. So let's take you back to your space. Let's do that healing there. Why
Hmm.
don't you talk to white and say, you know what? I really want to have a conversation where I'm seen. I want to be held and respected as a whole fucking human being. Like,
Hmm.
take that shit there instead of spreading your insecurities again back to being a bully and non-consensual. You come over here mad insecure, so you don't need to prove shit to me.
Yeah.
You're trying to prove it to him, and like that's some internal family system that y'all need to work out and
Right.
stop doing that shit over here.
Yeah. That's something that I heard you. I heard you say this in one of your videos a while back. And I actually had a similar conversation with another like potential clients that just like this just blows my mind. Like just this idea, particularly about white women and how white women will come into these conversations. And I don't know if you said it just as just this idea where when we as black and brown people are telling white women in particular, hey, in this space, you need to be quiet and you need to listen first, that they're hearing that with the same energy as their white men saying, hey, woman, you need to be quiet and
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is not your place.
yeah.
And they're hearing it the
Mm-hmm.
same way and not realizing the
Yeah,
context. When you're in a black and brown space, you are,
yeah.
as a white woman, you still have that power dynamic. And then it just gets
Yes.
really like people get super confused
Contentious.
and super offended. And that's something I love that you explain that like no, 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 wait,
No, no.
this ain't got nothing to do with me. This ain't got nothing
That
to do with
trauma
me.
that belongs here has nothing to do with me. When I say be quiet and listen, it is not because it's violence. It
Yeah.
is like when I say white violence, I mean it. I grew up in it. So I'm very well aware. And like a shut up usually comes with a physical behind it.
Right.
Right? Like it is such a violent culture. I really need us as black people also to really understand is like it's why I have like the healing community. It's why I wanted to expand because it's we're literally asking these people to jump out of a fucking plane and we better give a fucking parachute.
Hmm.
We got to.
Yeah.
Like you can't ask people to do that. It is so violent. People lose family, finances. Sometimes it is physical violence that is gonna come. So like when you hear "shut up" and listen inside of whiteness, I promise you a smack is coming behind that. So
Mm,
it's activating all of this trauma and
yeah.
survival, and then that subconscious ability to oppress me comes out, and now I am gonna smack you in your mouth. But who the fuck are you talking to right now? So it's like if we could really see like these traumas that are being activated and treat it like traumatic work and
Yeah.
treat it like a real true healing journey, right? I borrowed a word from the native community. I love reconnected. Like, right? Like if white people could start reconnecting, and because I say divest from whiteness, but then
Hmm.
again, you have to replace it with something. If white people can literally like reconnect to who they were while still recognizing the system, they
Yeah.
would not want the system because they'll
Yeah.
recognize what everything. All they have no agency, they have no autonomy.
Hmm.
Like you must conform to whiteness or you're ousted. And then
Yeah.
this is why we see them running rampant in our community.
Hmm.
And we're like, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, why are you here?
Yeah.
Why are you here?
I definitely
What
had
are you
like a couple of comments recently where somebody's asking me, and I did not have the like I I want to speak to it at some point, but I'm just like, I don't got the capacity right now. But it's basically someone saying like, hey, there's a white person saying, if I see like a black or indigenous or person of color that is, uplifting white supremacy, like, should I correct them? Like, should I say
no.
something to them? That's like short answer, no. Long answer, no.
And white people that you could tell that shit to. You know what I'm saying? Like, no. Like the authority, because like eventually we'll get there, right? Because for me, my goal is colonize or decolonize.
Uh-oh. Desiree, I'm losing you here. People on my stream, are you able to? Oh, you're
What?
back. You're back. Okay. I lost you for a second. Can you say that again? You were saying colonize or decolonize, and then I
Okay.
lost you.
Yeah. I said for me, it's going to come down to either you're colonized or decolonized, right? Because we are black people that are absolutely colonized. As like Clarence Thomas is a really great example, right? Like
Yeah.
you think with a colonized mind, speak with a colonized tongue, right? Like you talk about your own folks like that,
Yeah.
like, and that's a whole fucking other situation. So eventually we will get there where you'll just recognize that this person is just colonized.
Hmm.
But white people cannot know. No,
Yes.
you have zero authority here. And the more you like, why are y'all so brazen? I want you guys to unpack why you're so brazen to talk to black people and other people of color and indigenous people, but you scared to talk to your father. Take that boldness to your daddy and get the fuck out of don't talk to nobody about nothing until you could talk to white men about something. When y'all could do that, I'll believe you. When you could convince the 63% of white women not to be voting against their own fucking rights, I'll believe you. Then maybe you'll have the ability to talk to other folks. But until you can talk to your own people, no.
Bam. That's a sermon. That is a
Yep,
complete sermon, and that's what it is. That's
that's
what it
it.
is. There's
Yep,
such a sea, such an ocean of white people who need correction and who are problematic and who are harmful and yada yada yada. There's such a sea of that happening, and that's the question that needs answering. Is why would you even feel pulled to communicate this to black and brown people? And that's something that like I will often just to try to help people to get a different angle, like for myself, where I am very intentionally aware of misogyny and I'm aware of misogynoir and I'm aware of how that stuff pops up when men are interacting with women and non-men. And so I try to, I want to be a voice, I want to be an example, blah 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 blah. And yes, there are women who are drinking the Kool-Aid in terms of misogyny, right? Um, why the hell would I think that I need to correct that woman when there's so many men that are very
right.
blatantly like, all this
So
kind of
many.
stuff, right? So many, so many. So,
Too
why
many.
would I not direct my attention towards like my
Yeah.
people and that particular conversation?
People that would listen to you, right? Like these men
Yeah.
with podcasts, like why are you talking to women? Like you are like, bruh, talk if you really having that feeling, talk to men and stop bitching. Like cause like you sounding like and I know it was really certain shit when you say, right? Like, yeah, that sounds like bitching, right? Like that sounds like a sewing circle to me. Like that just sounds like gossip, right? And
Yeah.
gossiping is even some white shit. Like that is like a white creation, even gossip, right? To like get together, like frenemies, mean girls, like all of
Yeah.
that is part and parcel of colonization. Like
Yeah.
all of that. To like get together to gossip and like no meaningful conversation again, right here. Like what do we do? Are we having a conversation so we can actually air out some of these issues? Because I can admit that these issues exist. Or are
Hmm.
you just bitching? And if you're just bitching, I don't want to hear it.
I love
I
that.
don't want to hear it.
I love that. Like,
I
what are we
know.
really doing? What are we really doing? What are we
Yeah,
actually committing our energy to? Do we care about actually being effective? Or yes,
correct.
that's what it is. That's what, and that, oh God, that could be a whole other like live talking about like male alpha podcast culture. And that just, oh, like it just,
But can we touch on it for like 2 seconds? I
we
know we
absolutely
have
can.
much more.
We absolutely can.
Can we talk about the irony of black men
Uh huh.
calling themselves alpha men when it was a fucking experiment that white men took wild and free animals
Uh huh.
and placed them in containments.
Uh huh.
And this is where the theory alpha came from. Because when you're fucking contained, when you're outside of your natural fucking element,
Yeah.
you have to completely do something different. Can we not see the fucking irony and unpack that?
I was gonna
Like,
say
no.
that sounds like a whole other system that I've heard of before in this here history. Right.
Yeah.
And
So when you
yeah,
talk to men. I stay in my lane too. Like I'm a whole woman. I don't argue with men on the internet. I tag
yeah.
other men in there. I'm like, no, yeah. Maybe that doesn't sound feminist enough for you, but I got a whole husband. If a man talks to me crazy, I'm getting my husband.
Hey, period. That's what it is. That's what like,
I'm not doing.
you do. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
do what you do and what brings you life and what's in your purpose. And it's like, nah, I'm not gonna do that.
yeah,
Um, and
yeah.
that's, yeah.
So
'Cause
as bring that message to them. Like I need
yeah,
I need to hear it. I want to be in on the conversation and add what I can if it's beneficial.
yeah,
But please add to the alpha man. Like white men put living things in containment and created a situation that was do or die in survival,
yeah.
and you wound up with an alpha. I need you to sit with that before you fucking call yourself an alpha man. Okay,
Exactly. Exactly. And
what's up?
while we're adding we're adding just a couple minutes on that particular subject. I'll add a couple things on that subject too, because yes, definitely like the actual origins of the phrase and the silliness of how it doesn't, even in that context is incorrect, right? But it's one of those things where on every single angle, uh, like there's the very obvious, just kind of gross misogyny of it. Like that's to me, that's like the most obvious first thing is the gross misogyny. But then it's like it doesn't even work for the people that proclaim it. It doesn't even work for the biggest like voices of those. Like I have, and maybe I just because I don't be following these people that talk like that, but I have yet to see one that has actually been in like, oh, and I've been married for 15, 20 years in this successful marriage with these ideals. I've never seen it.
Ow!
I've never seen it.
It does because they're trying to model like the wildness of it to me is like, and this is why again, like reiterating why for me it's so important to do the work with healing white people is because that mindset is starting to fucking spread more, right? Like
Hmm.
we see it we see it as the generations change and shift, right? We see it, like younger black women wanting hypergamy, and I'm not mad at any black woman that wants to be taken care of, because God damn it, we did not ask for the right to work, because we ain't never fucking stopped working since we were drug here. So
Right.
I'm not, but using those mindsets, those tactics of whiteness. Not saying I want to be cared for, whatever, because really we need to be discussing what provision looks like within
Hmm.
our community, because
Hmm.
it ain't the same as their community. And I don't
Yeah.
want to live like that. So when I hear these black men talking like that, I'm like, you're trying to be white men. And that shit ain't even working for them. Like, it's not working for them. Their wives hate them. Their children hate them. Do you hear how white women talk about white men? Like, I don't even know how white people still exist, because I'm like, you guys hate each other. It's like so fucking dysfunctional. Like, I'm like, y'all hate men. Y'all hate white men. Like, fucking hate them. And it's like this dysfunctional system. And it's like, we are going to soon be the same way. And
Mm.
it's not even working for you. Like you
Yeah.
said, it's not. You
Yeah.
don't have a partner. You don't have a family. You don't have any of the things that you're talking about. And you
Yeah.
sound insane.
Yeah.
You sound
Yeah.
insane.
And lonely, like lonely as hell.
So lonely. So lonely. Listen, as we round this up, I had a conversation. My brother-in-law was over here, and he's a whole misogynist. And I was like, you do know you're black, right? Like, you know you're black. You know that there's no way for you to win patriarchy. You do realize if they come in rounding folks up, you gonna be right there with me, right? Like, you
Yep.
will not be an alpha. You will not be overranking me. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And
Yeah.
like, it took like a few hours, literally, but he started getting it. My husband just was like, "Hey
Mm.
man, hey man."
My name is Bennett, and I ain't in it.
He was like, I'm gonna start the fire. He just walked away, and that's a look. Like, no, no, we're not doing this. You got to be fucking kidding me. So yeah, those are my thoughts on podcast bros and alpha male and weirdness. Boy, these headphones are broken. Here, honey. Okay.
I just heard, oh!
Yeah, I'm trying to fix these damn things for 6 minutes already. It ain't happening.
But yeah, Leah, like, huh?
I said this is so much fun.
Yeah, this is great. This is great. I think, especially like, obviously, I've been following your page for however, whenever I first stumbled on it, and like, yo, this lady is brilliant and smart and talks her, you be talking your shit in all the best ways. Um, and I think especially when I saw your live with Portia and White Woman Whisperer, I'm like, oh, I haven't seen a
Yeah.
live action version of Desiree. Like, okay, like, like,
I
I'm waiting for the
love
podcast to drop. I'm waiting for the podcast to drop. That's all I'm gonna say.
on it. I'm
Wait,
never
what?
I
What?
have a
What?
podcast. I have a podcast. It's called Let's Have the Conversation on Spotify. Um, yeah. So I'm gonna be doing that. I'm gonna be doing it more often.
Okay.
Here's what it and I have a fucking YouTube, but I live on TikTok. I can't be in all the places. But what I am going to be doing is I am going to start strategically going live,
Uh huh.
like once a week for an hour, talking with somebody, and then I could download it, upload it to my YouTube, put it onto my
Yeah.
podcast. I need to be more diligent about it. Let's just be honest.
That's
I
great.
do.
That's great. That's great. And I mean,
Yeah.
like, it just seems that YouTube has such great potential, at least. Like, it seems like that could be, like, I'm not on YouTube like that in terms of making content, but it seems like that could have just some really good potential for some cool stuff, especially with the longer, the longer form. That's really the only place, really, for the longer form content. So I will just say,
Yeah.
I fully support that. I fully support that.
Yeah. I'm gonna do that. I don't know. 2023 will be like a more like I'm building the things to make it more structured, because I'm like such a freewheeling person.
Yeah,
Like it feels like it's killing my soul to like have a schedule. Like,
I
I'm
feel you.
like,
I feel you.
you won't break my soul. You won't break my soul.
Hey, can I just, you know what? Let me just This might not be necessary to say, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Um, my sister, black woman, please advertise your things. Please advertise your things. Even if it's just like a little 5-second ending to a video you're already gonna make. Please tell. I did not know you had a podcast. Please advertise your stuff.
I'm gonna get better. I am. Thank you for that, brother. I received that. Like, that's so deeply. I do. I'm gonna work on that. I am gonna. Yeah, I do have a podcast. I have the online healing community. I do one-to-one sessions. I do group sessions. It's all on my website. That's my same name, DesireeBStevens.com. Yeah, I need to. And it's my own thing, right? Like it's my own barrier of like I'm trying to work it because I want to deconstruct the thing. I'm like, fuck capitalism, right?
Right.
And I'm like, mutual aid could do this. Because like the truth of the matter is like I have 56,000 people that follow me.
Yeah.
If everybody fucking gave me $1 a month, yo, that's
You
56
said.
racks a month, fam.
Yeah.
You know, do you know what I could do with that? Do you know how I could like everything would be nothing? I could just like do one-on-ones. I could just like live on
Just change the
TikTok.
game.
I
Just
could like
change the game.
yeah, I like the healing homestead. I could fucking like I want mutual aid. Like so that's what I keep trying to call in. But you're right. And I'm gonna take that correction.
Excellent.
Because yes.
Excellent. Because it's just like, and I think that's the thing too, is that like sometimes just even that call to action makes the difference. Because there's people, I promise you, there's people that are already like, I love Desiree, I want to support her stuff. And so, the framework is I'm going to like and comment and share videos I see on TikTok. Not even realizing that, I can follow her podcast. I can donate this way. I can check out YouTube. I can, watch ads, whatever, whatever the stuff might be. That, there's people that want to do it.
I know. I'm gonna take your advice.
Yeah, and they'll probably give you more than $1 too.
Okay, turn up. Hey. That's on SoFi.com.
Hey, and that's something like co-star. Hey, what's up? Oh my gosh.
Bye.
I cannot handle the adorableness.
No, you can't have $5. Okay, you can earn some money later. I'm talking. This is me. I'm earning money. Okay. Boy, I love you. I love you. Bye. Do you want to go home? Let me tell Dad. I'm gonna call Dad because he's not listening to me. Okay, sit down then. Yep. I want my husband ASAP. Immediately.
I love the scream of terror. Ah!
Immediately. I tell my children too, my husband don't play about me. He gonna get your ass about me.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
It's so beautiful. But
yeah.
Yes, I am gonna tell me about what you got going on before we jump off of here.
Yeah, so I got a lot of stuff going on. So my business in general, right? So my business is Racial Equity Insights, and I work with organizations and businesses and like anybody, any organization that's like, we're tired of going through the motions. We really want to figure out how to embed this racial equity stuff into who we are and what we do and what our identity is and accountability, like all that kind of thing, strategy. Like that's my primary core business. And so I do a lot of things with Zoom meetings and workshops, and keynote speaking and coaching. Like I have kind of the suite of stuff that I do with businesses. And, kind of speaking of like, hey, ways to just get people other stuff that they can support with too. Like I launched my e-course. So I actually have an e-course that's about how to become an anti-racist. And I'm vibing with everything you were saying when you're talking about like, I can't treat you like a baby and give you the 1, 2, 3 manual, but I can at least give you like some of the framing so you know how to do this. And that's really what the e-course is for. Is a lot of people have no clue. Like I care about this. I'm learning on these 1-minute TikTok videos, but I want to do more. That's what the course is for. And I do have my course coming up for my webinar. I got a webinar coming up too for people that want to get into diversity, equity, inclusion as a profession. So yeah. And that's going to be next week on the 18th. And that's through Eventbrite, links on website, bio, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, I got a lot of stuff brewing. and some bigger stuff coming down the pipeline. And I'll shoot some announcements about that stuff out a little bit later on. But it's popping.
Exciting.
It's popping. This is a good
Do you
year.
do likely like for someone like me because I am trying to do like get into like more like speaking events and stuff.
Yeah, could you start from? I didn't hear the beginning of that sentence.
I said, do you do like coaching like for people like me? Like, okay, like I'm going to the webinar, right? Like for people that want to be like as a professional. So I will be signing up for that one. But what I want to know is like, do you also do like the coaching with all of like kind of getting that whole packaging like, individually for people? Because
Yeah, yeah.
individually, I am interested.
Absolutely. Yeah, shoot. Let's
Okay.
for real talk. Let's for real talk. I mean, executive
No,
coaching is one of my core offerings. So absolutely.
okay. Yeah, no, I'm down for that. Also, if it's cool with you, right? Because, like, again, I don't like to be like the end all be all, right? Like, I always add people's like links or trusted sources to my like sites or like whatever. Like in my Instagram bio, see, look at I'm promoting in
Come
my
on, IG.
Instagram bio. Like because there is so much like grief and trauma with this. I have like a free grief worksheet, but like inside of it, it's like a link to Portia's journal. I'm like, so you could journal about these feelings. So like, but I would like to like have. Can I add your link to something like in my community for this e-course? Because like, if I don't have to actually fucking make a framework for anti-racism, and I could just write them to you, and then they could come back to me and talk about it, I feel like that
Yeah,
community round. You get
definitely.
yours, I get mine. We're doing this together.
I love
Yes?
that. I love
So
that. Absolutely, absolutely. And shoot,
love it.
vice versa, vice. Because so what you like the things that you do, where you like work with like individual people, and then also like individual people in community who are trying to figure out how to do their stuff and heal from their stuff. Like that's all the stuff that I don't do. Like I'm not drawn to do that specific type of work. I'm more like, hey, let's
Right.
talk big picture, and then more like the
Love it.
individual stuff. Like let me put stuff on social media. You can do the e-course. So like vice versa too. Like you're doing work
Yeah.
that is so critical and needed that I don't do. So vice versa,
I would
I'd
love
love to I'd love to shout your stuff out too, and especially if you have like a link that gets right to this is what I do in terms of these healing communities. Shoot, let me add
okay.
that to my link tree too. I love that.
Please. I will absolutely. I'll shoot it over to you. It's the link that goes directly to the community because like obviously you can get there through my website, but the one that goes directly to it is make shit happen dot community. You like that? Because I love to curse.
That's fantastic. Make shit happen. Dot community.
Yeah, but make shift. So I'm not
Oh
like
oh
so
shift.
trash. I'm classy, goddammit. Such a fucking
Classic.
lady.
That's dope. That's dope. I dig it. I dig it.
I gotta actually pay attention to my child. And I want you to follow Parenting Decolonized. I don't know if you guys are mutuals or
Oh,
not,
we
but
are.
yeah, because she's fucking awesome. She has invited me to have a chat with her parenting peoples on decolonization.
Hey, well, you handle. Are
I
you guys doing
know.
that? Y'all doing that today?
I'm doing that today at 7, honey. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well,
So
tell her
if
I said
anybody
hello.
I shall. I shall. And if anybody wants to join her space, like in your parenting, you can. Her group is on Facebook, and it's literally Parenting Decolonized. And she's amazing. The work that she's doing with conscious parenting is something so important because, like, I'm really actively raising liberated Black children, right? Like, my kids are unschooled, their hair is natural, like they are like literally being raised as liberated as possible. So her work is so important to me. So I'm like feel super honored. Like all of this is happening today. Like that whole Lionsgate
I
portal,
was
the fact
about
that
to
it happened.
say. I was about to say. This time it ain't on
Listen,
coincidence.
when we made the date, I didn't even realize it. I did not realize it. And then, Parenting Decolonized hit me up and was like, will you do that? And then I'm like looking at my like moon scope sitting and I was like, so much.
It's
So
going
yeah,
down.
it's happening. It's happening. So
I'm here
thank
for
you
it.
for like boosting me on your platform and your space. And like I feel very honored because you don't go live very often. And like
This is
so
true.
excited.
You know what? That is mutual. I'm honored that you would join me here. I'm honored you hold me in this esteem. I respect your work so much. I love your voice. Um,
Same.
I will continue to enjoy your teachings and whatnot. And
Thank you.
obviously, we need to do this again. So we'll do this
We
again.
do. I'm
And
super down. I'm super down.
absolutely, absolutely. So we'll do this, and let's exchange some Linktree stuff. And
Yeah.
absolutely, whenever timing, whatever, like talk to me. We can figure out some coaching things as well because I absolutely got your back.
Yeah. I'm here for that. Thank you so much. Love you,
All
black
right.
woman.
I love you as well,
Out
black
here.
woman. You enjoy
Bye,
your rest of your
y'all.
day. You take care. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.